Well, I think we're good to get started. So thanks everyone. Appreciate everybody making time for today's session. We're going to be looking at another YCharts webinar partnering with Schwab. So today we're going to look at cutting our research time and elevating our proposals. So we'll be looking a lot at how the Schwab integration functions within YCharts, as well as what you can do thereafter within the YCharts functionality. My name is Tom Joyce. I'm an account manager here at YCharts. I cover primarily west of the Mississippi for our clients. And then on the line, we also have Chris Candela. Chris is a senior integration consultant at Charles Schwab. Chris, thanks for making the time today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you on. Okay, so just some information here on the right of the slide. To learn more about YCharts and view our other webinars, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions throughout today's session, you've got the chat functionality as well as the Q&A functionality within Zoom. So feel free to throw them in there. We'll be trying to get to them throughout today's conversation. We will also open up the floor at the end of today's session for more Q&A. Additionally, within YCharts, you have the online chat support team. You've got our hello@ycharts.com email. And then lastly, feel free to start a free trial at ycharts.com. For any of our new attendees today, for new clients, you can receive a 20% off your professional license. And that would be through May 22nd of this year. So 2 weeks from today. Feel free to take advantage. Highly recommend. And then as for the session itself, please keep in mind that the content of this webinar is meant for educational purposes only and is not intended to be used as investment advice, nor is YCharts acting as an advising party regarding client funds in any way. I'd also like to point out that a recording of this webinar will be sent to everyone and will also be available as a replay on our YouTube channel. So I know we're kind of around lunchtime across the country. You might get pulled away if that's okay. If you do, that's okay. You'll get an email on this. You'll be able to access it in the future as well. Okay, looking at today's session, what are we gonna do? First, we're gonna go in terms of our agenda. First, we're gonna go over our YCharts overview and what YCharts provides. We will take a look at the Schwab integration program and data passed to YCharts. We'll look at the integration setup. And then lastly, we'll look at leveraging Schwab portfolio data within YCharts. So just briefly, high-level overview as to what YCharts is. I'm sure a lot of our attendees today are familiar with the system. It is going to be a platform that enables investment insights and client communication when it comes to securities, stocks, funds, stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, closed-end funds, et cetera, and portfolio analytics. So we want to help both on the research side of things, the monitoring of those positions, but also the portfolio analytics side of things, whether it's working with your model portfolios, whether it's working with your client portfolios, or your prospect accounts. That's where we're trying to fit a need. Chris, I'd love to hear from your perspective around your context on Schwab and the Schwab integration program.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Tommy. So I'm part of Schwab's third-party integrations team, and our team works with vendors who serve the RIA industry. And these are vendors such as YCharts, obviously, the Tamaracks, the Black Diamonds, the Wealth Boxes of the world. And we really work to help them understand what integration Schwab has to offer. We help them come up with an integration strategy, and we keep them up to date on updates to our integrations or when we have new integrations. And our program has grown a ton in the past 5 years. As we stand now, we've got over 240 integrators with Schwab Advisor Center, and that includes firms that are using an API, using an SSO, or even using an FTP connection to download data files. And as I mentioned before in my examples, we serve all platform types. So we're not just honed in on one particular category or another. We really have integrations for any type of fintech provider who's serving RIAs. Now, just focusing on the API and SSO part, we have more than 20 different types of integrations in that category. And those range from real-time data, they are digital workflow integrations, and then SSO as well. So we got a lot to offer. YCharts has taken advantage of it. So I'm really excited for Tommy to go through the rest of the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that information. And to echo that, Schwab has been an excellent, partner for us. So Chris, we certainly thank you for that.
And likewise.
So in terms of what YCharts can provide here, there's a bunch of different facets. We certainly would love for our clients to take advantage of every niche that we can offer. However, we know that's not always the case. So we do offer a bunch of different areas that you as a user might be able to take advantage of. So starting from left to right, if you're looking at this like you're looking at a clock, we're going to start at the 9 o'clock. So looking at the position and market monitoring, YCharts can lend a hand when it comes to very simply monitoring your positions, your indices, your economic indicators that you want to track, whether that's news, whether that's performance, whether it's alerting. There's a lot of just kind of basic dashboarding that can happen here. We can then look at strategy assessment when you're building portfolios, visualizing via charts and tables, the performance or the risk or the allocations are all accessible here. In addition to that, we have idea generation. One of my favorite tools being the screeners and scoring models functionality. That's going to give our users the ability to identify securities based on criteria that they want to use in their portfolios, or that might fit a want or a need for one of their clients. You also have the due diligence aspect. So this would be analyzing and evaluating any of your securities via tear sheets, as well as our historical time series data, which is also very popular. And then lastly, the primary attraction for YCharts is going to be our portfolio analytics. That's building models, that's evaluating your current clients, that's looking at a prospect account, and being able to communicate what's going on either in your model or in their account in the form of an overview or a side-by-side comparison. We're going to get to that workflow here today once we show you what the Schwab integration actually looks like. And then we'll be able to move on into some of these features here that we've just mentioned over the last slide. Oops. Alrighty, so on to the demo. We're going to be taking a look at first getting the integration set up. Then we're going to look at pulling in an account into the system. And then once we have that account in the system, we are going to use it for evaluation purposes, looking at performance, risk, holdings. We're going to use other features within YCharts, such as our quick flows functionality, our scenarios functionality, even get into our report builder. So we are going to show you a bunch of different ways to navigate using a portfolio that we pulled in from Schwab in the YCharts system. So let's go ahead and get to it. I will pull open my YCharts account, and everyone should be able to see that. Under the support tab at the top, we will first go into our integrations functionality. So that's under the support tab at the top into integrations. From here, we've got our listed vendor partners. What we want to focus on here is the Schwab Advisor Center and iRebal integration. You can see that mine is active. If yours isn't, you're following along, you want to get that active. Simply click the toggle button on the right-hand side to activate that. It should take you to the Schwab website to sign in. It'll be a redirect to sign in. You're likely going to get a two-factor as well. You'll punch in your information. That is a one-time thing. You'll come back to YCharts. You'll see that it's activated, and then you're good to go. Now that we have our integration active, I'll go under the tools dropdown, and where this comes into play is within the portfolio's functionality. That's where we're going to live for a lot of today's conversation. But anytime you're talking about an integration, that's what we're focusing on. Now, for the sake of time, I've gone ahead and pulled in an account today, but we are going to show you how to get to this result. When you land on this page, you'll notice there are two buttons in the top right-hand corner, the Import Holdings button and the Create New button. I want to focus here on the Import Holdings button. And I can see that my Schwab Advisor Center and iRebal option is here. So when I select this item, we get another pop-up. When I click on the search by dropdown, you'll see there's two options. There's the client and the account, and those come from the Schwab Advisor Center. And then you'll notice there's three other options. The iRebal option. So you have the model, the blended model, or the portfolio. So you do have the functionality to bring in not just from the Schwab Advisor Center, but also from iRebal. And quick hint is that iRebal is a two-way integration. If there are any models that you create within YCharts, we have the infrastructure built out with Schwab to send a model from YCharts to iRebal. So that's pretty special. All right. So for today's conversation, I'm going to go ahead and select account. And you can type in the name, you can type in Smith, you can type in Joyce, you can type in Candela. In this case, I'm just going to show you, if I type in the letter A, we will get a bunch of different options. So it will read that. What I've chosen here today is the Smurf Sparrow account. And you do have the ability to import as the holdings themselves. So that would be like the fund and the dollar amount, or the stock and the dollar amount, etc. You can also import as single holding, which just aggregates that data together. I typically, personally like pulling in account holdings. It's going to give you a more granular view as to what this integration is pulling. And then you do have the ability to select import in the bottom right-hand corner. This is what that integration is going to pull over. So name of the portfolio. You can see it does not pull in more than the last 4 digits of the account number. Everything else is crossed out. More information, as well as when you pulled it in from. So data from Schwab Advisor Center today. Scrolling down, you can see all that's getting pulled over, the ticker symbol, the name, and the dollar amount. So we're mapping everything. We've done all of that legwork to pull over that client account. Scrolling up, you have additional inputs that you can edit when it comes to a portfolio. So for example, like let's say the Sparrow account isn't an all equity portfolio. Maybe we've got a little bit of bond. It could be an aggressive portfolio, but it's not going to be 100% like the S&P is. So in that case, we do have the ability to edit the benchmark as needed. YCharts has several pre-built benchmarks, 80-20, 60-40, 40-60, 20-80. You can use any other index that YCharts offers. In addition, you can use an ETF, you can use a fund. So for example, like, you've got the iShares that are like more allocation based. So aggressive allocation or a conservative allocation. Those are all like more target risk ETFs that track certain areas of the market. Those tend to be pretty popular. In addition, you do have the ability to add on your advisory fee. So that does not automatically get placed in. Should you want to represent that, you do have the ability to say, okay, I'm doing a 1% withdrawal on a monthly frequency. That's how I would account for this. And then you're good to go. It is as simple as that. The legwork is quite frankly done for you through that integration. So knowing some of these inputs and these tips and tricks on the benchmark and the advisory fee, should you want to take advantage of them, they are readily accessible post integration. All right, so like I said, I've gone ahead, I'm going to delete that. I've gone ahead and pulled over this exact same account, so that's what we're going to use for today's conversation. And let's go ahead and look at what's available now that we have a portfolio pulled over from Schwab. Navigating these tabs at the top is my preferred approach because it kind of segments the data that you're looking at, whether it's performance or allocations or just looking at stress tests, etc. That's what we're going to take a look at here today briefly. So in the Sparrow account, I can look at performance over various time frames. Year to date, I can see what this looks like. A few quick ones that I really like to point out. What's the dividend yield on the portfolio? And we can see this right here, 2.13%. Low expense ratio, that's what I want to see. Current yield, bond side of things. Potential cap gain. Scrolling down, you get a summary version of everything else we're going to be looking at in the tabs at the top. So top 10 holdings, asset allocation. Love this section right here, the risk analytics. A couple things that we're looking at. Alpha and beta, standard deviation, Sharpe, Sortino, drawdown, biggest peak to trough, and then monthly value at risk. So basically 95% confidence interval of the maximum amount that we'll be losing in any given month. What's nice though is in the top right-hand corner, you can edit these time frames. So we don't just have to look at a 10-year, we can do a 3, 5, 10, 15, or all-time look back. And then lastly, we have performance. So we'll focus on a few of these tabs. We'll go through performance, allocations, and holdings. We're going to jump over to some more visual features, fundamental chart, scatter plot, and stress test. And then we'll pivot into some of the other features that YCharts has to provide. So I can head into performance here. We've seen this line chart already a couple times. Choosing your time frame at the top, totally fair game. Scrolling down, you do have the periodic returns as well as the annual returns. So just trailing performance up against a benchmark, as well as calendar year performance up against a benchmark. And then lastly, you have the upside downside capture, which means relative to the benchmark, how much of the upside are we capturing and how much of the downside are we capturing? So getting a number greater than 1 is actually awesome because it means, yeah, we're getting a lot of that upside and not as much of the downside. So that's a compelling reason for you as a financial professional, you might want to communicate that. You do have the ability to edit comparables. It does not just have to show against a benchmark. You can even toggle that off. You can throw in anything else that you might want to. Next tab over is going to be our allocations tab. Only spend a few moments here, but I just like to look at it from the perspective of here's the high level cash, stock, and bond allocation. But in times like these, especially year to date, we know that it's not just, currently the market hasn't been indicating it isn't U.S. exceptionalism right now. Where is our international exposure coming from? This is going to help you as a financial professional identify that. So we can see the vast majority of this portfolio is going to be based here in the Americas, but you can also see the international exposure. And you can get more country level exposure if you'd like. And then down below, you also have the ability to look at your market cap exposure. On the equity side, you've got stock style exposure and stock sector exposure. And then on the right-hand side, should you have a fixed income portion of your portfolio, it will be represented on the right-hand side of the portfolio here. Next tab over is the holdings tab. One of my favorite features that YCharts has to offer because it gives you the ability to look underneath the hood. So on the holdings tab, this is what we have purchased in the portfolio. A bunch of ETFs. GLD is our largest portfolio holding. We've got mid cap, we've got large cap. You can see it all here. So a couple things. Above the pie chart, you do have this holdings toggle. I can swap from holdings to underlying holdings. This is going to give you the ability to understand with this client portfolio that we've pulled over from Schwab, what is the allocation to specific securities? In this case, we can see gold is our largest. Then we have cash. But then we've got over 2% to Apple. Well, where is that coming from? If I click the plus sign on the left-hand side, it is going to show me where that's coming from. Primarily IWF, but also IVE, VV, VTI, and USMV. So you can understand where we're getting that allocation from. In addition, I do want to show the subheader, which is called categorize. This categorize subheader creates a data table for you. So if you do want to understand whether it's the performance or the expenses or the yields or the risk of the holdings within your portfolio, you can see that here, right? So I can see key stats, expenses, yield, turnover ratio, performance, and 5-year risk. Now, these are all readily available for you to analyze. Shifting gears to the more visual side of things in comparison to the more granular analytical side of things. Fundamental chart, one of those popular features that YCharts offers. And it's for a reason. It's easy to communicate visuals rather than just straight data points. So when I come into our fundamental charting tool, it's going to default to a 1-year look back of the portfolio relative to a benchmark. But there are several tabs here that you can choose from. I can look at a year to date. I can look at a 1-year. I can look at a 5-year. I can go to whatever time frame I want. If I choose max, it's going to look for a common inception date here. Looks like we got data going back to 2011. I'm going to go back a 10-year look back though. On the left-hand side, as I scroll down, there are different data formats. We've got a growth custom data format, which allows you to look at a dollar amount investment. So I can say, okay, what's $100,000 look like? It defaults to 10 grand. Throw in whatever number you need that's going to help you communicate with your clients. It's going to be easier for them to read, probably rather than a percent change format. Throw in a dollar amount, say, okay, 10 years from now, these both double. Is my fee, affecting the performance here? Did you throw that in there? Or do I need to get a little bit more aggressive in terms of performance? Or am I simply mitigating downside risk? Like, what am I reaching for in my portfolio here for this client? This is going to give you the ability to historically look at how this is fared. In addition, one that I absolutely love is this percent off high. In terms of communication, this shows you the downside risk. That's all this is showing is pullback. So purple relative to the orange line. So back in 2015, 2016, had a bigger pullback relative to the benchmark. Same pullback in 2018, basically the same during COVID. 2022, this is something to call out. That's about what are we looking at? Over 5% differential in terms of drawdown. And it got back to its high quicker. About 6 months in advance, geez. So these visuals allow for that. You also have the scatter plot functionality. This is a different type of visual tool that you have at your disposal. This looks at the trade-off between risk and return. So volatility from left to right and performance from top to bottom, both on a 3-year time frame. So you can see like, here's the portfolio, here's the benchmark, and all the blue dots are all of the holdings. So anything that gets out of line you'll be able to identify it pretty quickly. But it's nice to be able to see here and say like, okay, this portfolio over the last 3 years actually has better performance and less volatility. And then lastly, we have the stress test tab. So the stress test tab is going to give us the ability to understand historical economic environments. How has this portfolio fared during them? An inflationary period, COVID crisis, trade crisis with China from 2018, other options as well. I did put in a year-to-date option. Most of our attendees today will not see that. Through the manage button in the top right, I can customize this. Through adding the add custom button, throw in whatever you'd like. They don't have to be these, unique time frames. They can be whatever speaks to you, whether it is year to date or just 2024 or just 2023 or what have you. So that's what exists when it comes to the analytics of a portfolio. When it comes to reporting on these portfolios, so that's a very common workflow is, okay, I've got my Schwab Advisor integration set up. I'm going to pull in client Sparrow, and I've got a client review coming up. I need to run a report. In the top right-hand corner, we do have this reports button. And there are different categories here on the left-hand side. There's the comparison, there's the overview, there's the multi-comp, etc. This does allow you the ability to essentially transfer everything that we just looked at, performance, allocations, risk, etc., into a print-friendly report. So the comparison report allows you, this is a side-by-side. You pull in the client, you want to recommend them into a different strategy of your making. This is where that would take place. You just want to analyze this client's portfolio. By all means, use the overview report, use the tear sheet, because these are just allowing you to analyze one portfolio in particular. You'll see there's various options, just allocations, comprehensive being the full list, the full gamut. You've got performance and risk, just risk. So there's several different options for you to choose from. Just finding the one that's right for you. I like to pitch it as like a KYC. It's a know your client. Are you speaking with an engineer? All right, they might want to know a little bit more. Are you speaking with someone who doesn't necessarily like looking at all of the numbers and just wants to know how they're doing and where they're allocated and what holdings they have? Well, the two-pager or the allocation overview, that might be an appropriate path forward. Those are the pre-built reports. I will say we do have a report builder functionality, which can allow for a little bit more customization when it comes to the reporting. Now, for the sake of time, I won't go through all of the edits that you can make, but I will show that through our report builder, through the create new button, we do have templated items, some of which you saw when generating a report, others of which you did not. On the overview report, we do have a new functionality called risk profiles. And this could be another awesome use case when it comes to pulling in a portfolio from the Schwab integration to analyze, if they're a risky, growth client, well, what is their, based on our understanding of risk of growth or risk growth profile, where does their actual portfolio land when it comes to that? So that risk profiles option does exist. I've gone ahead and I've actually created a report of what this looks like. So for any of our reports, your logo can be included. And if I scroll down, it shows performance. But what I really want to point out is this is showing me in red where my portfolio that I pulled in from the Schwab side is in comparison to its target. So scrolling down, it's pretty cool. I think it's just a great visual feature. when you're speaking with clients, because this allows you to choose in the risk profile when you're creating it. It allows you to choose, okay, what does a typical growth target stock allocation look like? Anywhere from 30 to 70%. Maybe you need to tweak that and say maybe it's anywhere from 50 to 70. You can make those adjustments, but you can see where your client falls in relation to what that target risk profile typically expects. Same idea when it comes to market cap. Like, yes, we've got the stock allocation appropriate, almost 56%. Yes, the target bond allocation is appropriate. Scrolling down though, we can see we've got the appropriate small cap. We do not have the appropriate large cap. We need to bump that up in order to kind of get to where we want to be. As I continue to scroll down, there's a drawdown and a volatility module as well. This is another really great one to show. Probably the most impactful, I would say, is, okay, if you have a growth risk profile or a moderate growth risk profile, we want your drawdown to be less than 30. Well, you can say as an advisor, I've cut that in half. Or here's your 5-year target volatility, less than 15% on an annualized basis, or about 60% of that. So these are visuals that allow you to represent that pretty clearly. So that's our reporting side of things when it comes to pulling in a portfolio from the Schwab integration. And then lastly, I will just harp on 2 more features. One will be really quick. One will look at some inputs because I think it's really powerful. So for those of our attendees that aren't familiar, likely my favorite feature on YCharts will be the quick flows functionality, this blue pop-out attached to the scroll bar on the right-hand side. Pre-built analytics. That's what you need to think about. You don't need to do anything. All you need to do is know which security you want to evaluate. Whether that's a portfolio, it's a stock, it's a fund, whatever. In this use case, I'm looking at the Sparrow account. I don't need to know this ticker symbol. I just can type in Sparrow and it'll populate my portfolio for me. But it's getting you exposure into the rest of YCharts. Calendar year returns, what it looks like to dollar cost average, analyzing my underlying holdings. So you'll recall 20 minutes ago, we looked at the holdings categorized tab, but those were just a few metrics. You want to expand that for your holdings, use the holdings analysis of the quick flows section. It's going to be great. You can also use the comparison tab. So if I wanted to compare my Sparrow portfolio to SPY, well, now I've got that in here and I can look at everything from performance to asset allocation to equity style exposure, sector exposure. Again, everything is hyperlinked for my convenience. So please leverage that at your convenience. I think it's going to make quite a difference. And then the last feature I want to review today is found under the tools dropdown within the scenarios feature. Now, this will come down to how much data your portfolio has. But the idea behind the scenarios tool is going to give you the ability to model out what it looks like to contribute to or withdraw from a given portfolio. Let's say I'm working with a retiree who's got $1 million in their account, that Sparrow account, and we want to say hypothetically over the last 10 years, if we were to withdraw 4%, what would that look like? So in order to do that, I'm going to open up this Sparrow portfolio and I'm going to choose dates. So I'm going to say 12/31/2015 through 12/31. Oh, that's not right. 2024. We'll go with $1 million. And then I have the ability to add a scenario. So if you're following along, even if I'm moving just slightly too fast, it is for the sake of time. Just know that it's available. And then you can reach out to our support team and we can actually help you with these inputs. So I'm just going to call it a 4% rule. And we can say, let's take a look at a withdrawal. Let's do this on a percentage basis, but I'm going to do 1%. I'm going to do that quarterly. That's going to be my option. Custom rate of change. We know that inflation has gotten out of control. It's back in 2022, it did, or 2023. We know that it's entirely possible that could happen again. If we need to model that out, we can say, okay, custom rate of change, let's just account for a 3% rate of change on a yearly basis, right? Let's say we're going to average that out. Over the last 100 years, the long-term average is what, 3%, 3.25%. Let's just use that average here. Click add and calculate. And now what this is going to return to me is a hypothetical situation of $1 million at the beginning 10 years ago. This blue staircase at the bottom, that's if you took $1 million, you put it underneath your mattress, you didn't invest it, and you just withdrew these sums of money, each quarter or each year. The purple line is your investment in the market, including the withdrawals. So what this tells me is if you're a retiree, markets are going to bring ups and downs. You're going to have equity exposure, you're going to have bond exposure to help diversify. But that's the reason diversification exists, is because you want to stay in the market, because over the long run, despite the fact that we've had these blips, we've taken out over $40,000 hypothetically every year for the last 9 years, 10 years. And you can see that $1 million turned into 1.5 almost. So yes, great feature to show with clients when it comes to their portfolios. But from a sheer educational standpoint of showing clients, this is why diversification exists. This is why we're going to stay in the market, even though you're a retiree and even though you're withdrawing money. It's because over the long run, we expect this portfolio to perform as expected. Like we've set you up for success. This is a really helpful way to communicate that. Alrighty. So we just went through roughly 30 minutes of a YCharts demonstration stemming from one thing, pulling in a portfolio from our Schwab integration. So when you start there, you can go through all the bells and whistles of performance, allocations, holdings, fundamental charts, scatter plots, stress tests, all on the portfolios page. You can then shift gears into reporting. You need to generate a side-by-side report or an overview report. That is fair game. You want to customize that report. You want to use risk profiles. Our report builder is going to set you up for success there. We then pivoted slowly into our quick flows functionality. Again, stemming there is just pre-built analytics, which is the beauty of quick flows. You don't have to do too much. And then lastly, we came into our scenarios tool, which gave us the ability to pull in this Sparrow account and understand like, hey, a million years ago, 10 years ago, $1 million, what does it look like to withdraw these huge sums of money? So hopefully there are some takeaways and nuggets in here that our attendees can use moving forward in their practice. I'm going to now open up the floor to any Q&A. I will mention here getting in contact with Schwab, the advisorservices.schwab.com/contact us. Email is right there. You can start a YCharts free trial, www.ycharts.com. You've got our support. And again, for our new attendees here today, for our potential new clients, receive 20% off over the next 2 weeks. Make sure you mentioned you attended today's session. But I'm opening up the floor here. I'll wait to see. I think we may have some, so let me get to these. In the meantime, there is this QR code. If you have any interest, a really cool new calculator that YCharts just put out, that you'll be able to see how much time you can save, but you'll also be able to start a free trial through this feature or through this QR code as well. Okay, let's see what we have, if anything.
Tommy, I'll jump in. There's one here that says when I import an account from Schwab, it is showing me a target weight in the holdings section. Where is this coming from and how do I get rid of it? So the target weight field originates in the iRebow platform. Now, within iRebow, you can toggle that target weight on or off. It's your choice, and it would be in the allocation section. In terms of once the account gets into YCharts, that would be a question for the YCharts support team.
Yep. Yep, I can tackle that. So, Chris, thanks for mentioning that. I wasn't familiar with that on the iRebound side, so that's helpful to know. And then on the Y chart side of things, everything will map back to the target weighting and the percent allocation. So should you put in a current weighting, you can see it will map back to whatever the target weighting is. It's just a calculation that allows the Y charts portfolio to essentially backtest the historical data. That's an industry standard practice. Ooh, good question. So the question was, is there in the integration functionality, is there the ability to like pull in several accounts at once? Yes. So I'll go back to A. Um, let's say I wanted to take in this Sparrow account and this account. I can just keep clicking. And when I select import, it is going to aggregate that data together. So you'll have the functionality to pull them all over at once. Um, in addition to that, should you pull them over separately for any particular reason, maybe they're not under the same client name, that could be a reason. Once you pull them over individually, you do have the ability to create a portfolio as a household. So once each individual account is in there, you can just throw them in there all together and it's gonna populate for you. Um, let's see, I've got to pull open this. Ooh, alrighty. Oh, I like that question. That's probably going to be relevant to everyone. Can we show performance as of a specific date? Tariffs went into effect at the beginning of April. Do you want to see what that performance looks like? Absolutely. In fact, that is a tailor-made use case for stress testing. So going into the stress test, that's where I would do it. Of course, you can do it in the fundamental charting tool. Like by all means, have at it. But that's probably going to be a chart that you are revisiting time and again with clients, or at least client portfolios. I would just throw it in the stress test tab one time. So by clicking manage in the top right, I can add a custom time frame, call it since tariff, or tariff or whatever, and enter in the time frame. You only need to enter in a start date. So I say, like, okay, they were announced on the 2nd. I'm going to leave that open. I can say tariff. Did I spell that right? Nope. Add stress test. I'll drag this up to the top. Click update. And now my tariff option is showing. So I can see that huge drop those first few days, bottoming out on the 8th, coming back up, a little bit of volatility, but you can see we've been coming back up since. A good question here. Can you show with and without DRIP, the dividend reinvestment program? No, we are currently set up only for DRIP. We'll process that feedback. We do hear that, so make sure our product team is aware of that feedback to be able to show the differences. Okay, good question here. Is there an easy way to view the regional allocation of only the equity allocation? So on the allocations tab, there's no way to show that. Um, the advice that I would provide here, um, I mean, we definitely hear you loud and clear on that one. That data is available within our comp tables tool. So for example, I'll even do this I'll use this portfolio. We do have what is the United States equity exposure. So I can actually do this for each either country or region. And I can see like, all right, that's my United States equity exposure. And I can see what that number looks like. So we do have that data. It's just, it's likely going to be accessed in our comp tables tool rather than the allocations tab of the portfolio itself. Okay, good question here on a very broad level. Can you give a list of the benefits of adding this integration versus manually adding a client's portfolio? We're a smaller RIA and need to weigh the pros and cons of the extra compliance efforts. So I'm happy to speak to this. Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I would just say streamlining and ease of use. Like that is going to be the name of the game here so that you don't have to take a statement or export to Excel, add a step for yourself and input it. You're welcome to do so. But this is part of the subscription and your affiliation with Schwab and YCharts. You get access to this. So it is our effort here to make your life easier. We think we've done that. And from working here for several years, I haven't run into many clients, if any, that have not enjoyed using this benefit and it hasn't outweighed the compliance efforts.
Yeah, and from
Okay.
the Schwab side. So first, I'll second everything Tommy just said. But from the Schwab perspective, the benefit is the convenience. Taking information from YCharts, work that you've done, models you've created, and sending those over to Schwab Advisor Center to execute trades. So right there, you're working with information in the YCharts platform, and then you don't have to rekey that information within the iRebout platform. So it's basically sharing data between the two that can be useful in different contexts, whether it's in YCharts or in iRebout.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically benefits from both sides, right? And that's really what we're after in this partnership. Let's see. Ooh, good question here. Does the data update daily or do you have to import everything each time you want to use it? So, Sparrow account. Right now, it's just pulling in one time. You absolutely can refresh the imported data. So I click the three dots on the right-hand side. I can refresh the imported data. I can either do this each time I need to. There's also this auto data refresh. So auto data refresh right here. And I can choose a frequency. Do I want this to refresh daily, weekly, or monthly? So it really, like, it will recalculate the portfolios every single day if you do that. So if you don't want to add that to your list of like, it'll say calculating. If you just want to be able to access that portfolio at any given moment in the morning, and you're not looking and you're not having like client meetings with that client every day, weekly might work, monthly might work. It's kind of up to your discretion. So feel free to toggle as needed. Again, the process there was once you pull open that account, the three dots on the right-hand side, there's a refresh imported data, auto data refresh.
And that data is in real time. So it's going to Schwab Advisor Center and grabbing the actual real time balances and value of the holdings
Yep.
and the account.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. Think I think the last one we had was just about a quick performance metric. So if you do want to find the expense ratio on your portfolio, on the quote tab below the chart, there's this key stats module of 8 financial metrics. The expense ratio should automatically populate into one of these fields. If it doesn't, you can customize this in the top right, and you can edit over any one of these metrics and type for the expense ratio, it'll populate. But I think I really love the engagement. Thanks so much, everyone. Um, if anything else comes up, but I'll answer it. But I think we might be good here, Chris.
Yeah, sounds good.
Um, of course, I'll reiterate any questions that anyone has. Please reach out to your YCharts support representative, your Schwab support representative, myself, Chris. We're, in any capacity that we can help, we will. Um, but just want to say again, thanks for making the time today. I'm sure it's easier when the market's kind of ripping to sit in on this call, but we certainly appreciate everyone making the time and hope everyone has a great rest of their day.